Bioretec today reported on the 2023 figures. Let's talk more with CEO Alan Dunsey. Alan, good to have you on the interview.
Thank you, Antti. It's a pleasure to be here.
So would you please first start by summarizing your year 2024? What were the milestones for you?
2024 was obviously I was there for about 6 months. So it was an exciting start for me with Bioretec, getting to know the people, getting to know the product, really getting to know the strategy. So it was very unique from that standpoint. From Bioretec's perspective, it was a very positive year in many respects, but one marked by kind of a waiting for our CE mark for Remios. So everything is about getting to the market as quickly as possible. And we made huge progress in so many areas, but getting the CE mark finally in the last few weeks was the biggest crowning achievement. In 2024, from a sales perspective, we did grow by about 16% with no new product approvals. So we got a growth of about 16% around the world, 4.5 million euro, which is certainly reasonable and respectable. But now that we have the CE mark approval, that's going to be, the game changer for us. But 2024 was about building capabilities and building the capabilities to expand our Remios commercialization from the U.S. from a very controlled launch to a wider expansion of Remios, but also Activa, which was not in the United States other than with one of our partners. So we have built up our capabilities with 3PLs and with the different distributors, and we are expanding that. We did more cases in January than any single month in 2024. And so again, we're expanding our business very quickly through having the ability to get our products to the market, get them to the surgeons, and get them in the hands of the surgeons for their patients. We also made very strong strides in our product development areas, specifically with respect to the DrillPin, the spinal cage, as we move forward with clinical trials in those areas to bring those products to market. But again, 2024 was about setting the stage for huge growth going forward over the next 3 years. And that's what we were able to do. So it was a very strong year, good position, extremely well at the end of the year for growth in 2025. Okay.
Your Activa products did especially well in Europe and China. So can you talk a little bit about the strengths in those markets and also about the pricing situation in China?
Yeah. China did have quite a bit of change towards the end part of the year with volume-based pricing that has come down from anti-corruption activities in China that affected all manufacturers across the board. We were able to offset the lower pricing with additional revenue from additional sales. So we grew our business substantially in China, but at a slightly lower price, ASP. So we had to offset that. In Europe, we grew the Activa product line dramatically. And as I said, we set the table for Activa growth in the United States as well. So at the end of the year, we're very well positioned to continue our base product of Activa. And what it does for us, especially in the U.S. markets, it gives us a comparable product to our competitors because Activa is very much a comparable product to companies like Osseo, for instance. And we can bring that product into the hospitals and show some cost savings while positioning the Remios product as the premium opportunity for doctors to utilize those for special cases right now and build that pricing strategy in the U.S. So it's very important that we have both pieces. Yep.
As you mentioned, you got the CE mark in January, which is a nice milestone. Can you talk a little bit about the next steps, what you need to, can you start selling to distributors immediately, or are there some things to clear before that?
Yeah, but let me just comment about the CE mark a little bit quickly, because it's easy to say you have an FDA approval for Remios, and you have a CE approval for Remios. And it sounds very much the same, but it's very, very different because in the US, we had to go through the de novo breakthrough device designation status, and we got a single indication, the medial malleus, for a single screw, the lag screw solid. In the CE application, we asked for upper, lower, everywhere, upper and lower extremities. We asked for pediatrics as well as adults. We got every indication approved across the body, except for places where the screws won't fit, tiny bones in the hand and the foot. But everything else we had that we asked for that we got. So the indications are across the board. The product set is across the board. So it's a dramatically different situation in Europe going forward. Now we will be able to sell the Remios product as quickly as we can get the labeling and logistics done. So we have orders now taking place for the Remios product. We have to make sure that the labeling matches exactly what the CE mark says. We need to make sure that the packaging that is put together and shipped out. But we do expect to sell those immediately and start shipping that product before the end of the first quarter to our distributors in the EU. Okay.
Are there some kind of national processes, such as reimbursement processes, that you need to start now?
Yeah, I mean, each country has its own unique set of environments where you have to check for things. Many of the EU countries, we're ready to go. We've already been well prepared for that for quite some time. But there's other countries, that are outside of the traditional EU. They accept the CE mark. And other than Japan, China, and the US, a lot of the countries do accept the CE mark, but you do also have to do some local checks and things like that, and some paperwork to make sure that you're qualified to send those products into those markets. So we'll be doing all of those things over the next 6 months. We expect to take that first round of orders from our distributors and start selling the Remios product. And it'll take about 6 months for us to get through that first set of orders with whether it's regulatory requirements or just to be able to quickly get it out the door. So it's going to be a round of about 6 months for the first big orders of Remios throughout the world. Okay.
So how about the US then? You are in the early stages of commercialization. So what are the main bottlenecks and things you need to win during this year to move forward in sales?
Well, the US is set. Now we have the Activa product line. We have plenty of Remios product for the lag screw in the US, and that is being sold as we speak now. We have distributors in place. We have the third-party logistics, GMOX, in place to be able to distribute the products. We've got the instrument sets in the US, and we were able to get a lot of that done prior to the end of the year, which avoided any tariffs and things like that. So we've got a lot of that in place now. What will really propel the US market is when we do get back with the remaining screws from the 510K for cannulated screws, fully threaded, headless, etc. The next round of the 510K, when that's approved, that will help us, jumpstart the Remios product set to even higher levels. But we will have the Activa moving now. Okay.
And would you be expecting those 510Ks this year?
Of course. Now, we don't predict the regulatory approvals around here anymore after 37 months for the CE mark, but we're very confident that we have everything in place to get those things done as well. So, yeah.
And how about the reimbursement status in the US? Where are you with that?
Well, the reimbursement status, as we've talked about before, is extremely good. We have VA contracts with the DoD and the VA at very high, $1,459, $1,500, slightly over $1,500, depending on the contract. Prices for our CE marked and now FDA marked Remios screws. The pricing at the government level is a credibility check for hospitals. And so we will, as we go forward over the next 6 to 12 months, test out that pricing strategy with both Activa and Remios at the commercial level, but we're starting from a very high level. So we're excited about where we are starting. We have a good strategy on pricing, and we expect that we will come in substantially larger numbers from the U.S. than any other market around the world.
In your report, you talked about the single-use instruments. So can you explain a little bit more about the importance of one and the role of those?
Yeah, I think that it's important to realize that the U.S. market and some markets like Germany are very different than the rest of the world, and that around the world, we sell our instrument sets and our implants in bulk to our distributors, and then they go and market them to the hospitals. In the U.S., we are in a very different situation. We have to create all of the implants and all of the instrument sets and put them in place for the hospitals to use to sell the product. And so the manufacturer in the U.S. is on the hook for instrument sets without any other strategy. Now, what we've done in the U.S. is we're working with ECA Medical, a leader of instrument set manufacturing, especially disposable ones, to create these disposable instrument kits that will have both the instruments and have the implants ready to go. And as part of that kit pricing, we will get a little bit of that instrument set back rather than having zero back if we had to manufacture reusable instruments all the time. So it's part of our strategy to be able to do two things. We want our product to be available to the patient at all times. If you have a reusable instrument set that hasn't been cleaned and sterilized and on the shelf, then you have to wait for that to do the procedure, and they may have a competitive product using that. But with our disposable instrument kits that we will have, those will be readily available. You just pull it off the shelf and you're able to do the surgery immediately. So we will enhance our capabilities on product sales with these disposable instrument sets. And we have the added benefit of not having to manufacture all of the reusable instrument sets that tend to get lost or damaged, and you have to maintain those. And it's just a sunk cost for the manufacturer. So we're looking at this very much as the best way to proceed in the U.S. And we'll look at other markets as they come around. But for the U.S., we're going to be really looking at bringing those to market very quickly.
And you talked about the DrillPin, the next product in the Remios line, and you have gained ethical approval. So what will follow next for the DrillPin?
So we are in the process of looking to start the actual implantations with the new drill pins. Our goal is to have the drill pin fully applied for a 510(k) approval in the U.S. before the end of this year. In order to do that, we've got to fulfill all of the aspects of the clinical trials, including the ethical approvals and all of those things. And we're well on the way to getting all of that done. That's going to be a huge product. The hammer toe market alone is tremendous, but you have patients that have a big need for this. And what they're doing right now is they're putting in a device that they have to take back out after 6 weeks. With the Remios drill pin, it goes in one time. They never have to come back to the hospital. It's done. So it's going to be a tremendous product as soon as we can get it. And we would hope to get, apply for the different forms of device breakthroughs and things like that for these products as well. So a lot to do before the end of the year to get this product done, but we are on track to do that. So.
And would you expect to get the approvals this year or next year, or what is the outlook?
Again, Ante, I can't predict. I think we've learned quickly that we're not going to predict when approvals will come. We're going to basically predict when we're going to apply for everything. So we certainly expect to have everything applied for. And my goal would be to get everything done as quickly as possible. So that product could be this year, could be next year. It just depends on how fast the changes in the regulatory market in the U.S. There's a lot of things changing in the U.S. right now. So we'll see what happens with some of that. You just don't want to try to predict all of that. So.
Yes, which brings me to the next difficult question. There's been discussion on tariffs, and that's a risk for you. So how can you mitigate those risks, and how can you prepare?
You know, it's an interesting situation, and each Finnish manufacturer will have their own take on this. But right now, as we sit here today, the tariffs that are being considered by the U.S. government are basically reciprocal tariffs that would offset value-added taxation. So in Finnish or European markets, that's generally around 15% tariffs that would be reciprocal. Because Remios is coming into the U.S. market right now in a big way, the controlled launch last year, the expanded launch along with Activa, we have this unique time right now where we can set our pricing slightly higher than we would have otherwise to offset that, and we would expect very minimal problems for our pricing right now in the U.S. So we're lucky and that we are doing it now at the time when these tariffs are coming out. We know what to deal with. So we're well prepared for that. And I think that we will completely mitigate that cost.
So finally, would you go through your funding situation and what is the outlook for 2025?
Yeah. As we said during our last capital round, we were extremely successful in raising some funds in November, about 6 million euro. It was almost twice oversubscribed and closed at a 2.9% discount that everybody can see. So we were very successful in that round. At that time, we explained to investors that we would be looking for options to add additional funding to the company in the late spring timeframe. And so those are still our plans. We will discuss that with stockholders at our annual stockholders meeting and bring that forth. But the board is looking at options of how we want to bring that forth towards the late spring for a funding round.
Alan, to wrap up, is there something you'd like to highlight for 2025?
It's going to be an exciting year. We can finally sell Remios in a big way in Europe and beyond. And it's very exciting to see this. I think it's going to be fun to watch the revenue growth. We still have, a lot to do with respect to our product sets, whether it's the spinal cage, the drill pin, the additional 510K screws for the U.S. There's a lot to do this year. But finally, we're starting off the year with a great news, and that is the CE mark is here. And we'll see that growth in revenue. So we're excited about it.
Thank you for the interview and best of luck for 2025.
Thank you, Antti. It was a pleasure.